Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I'll be going over my recommendations for 2025's Event Campaign 7. As always, chapters to each topic are listed below. Today's video is brought to you all by the STO Discord, a community-driven server for like-minded gamers to come together and share in their passion for all things Star Trek Online. Whether you're looking for a place to learn more about the game or an active community running events on PlayStation, they've got you covered. And for the PlayStation folks here, they run monthly giveaways including a $10 PSN gift card. The STO Discord is all about bringing players together, so if that's what you're looking for, head on over to discord.gg/stocoms or hit the link in the pinned comment down below. Thanks again to the STO Discord for sponsoring today's video. Now, before I get too far into things, I do have a few notes to go over. First, the Event Campaign 7 Premium Ship Box will net you a single promotional or lockbox ship that was released prior to 2025, and whatever you pick is going to be just for a single character. So it's very important that you put some thought into your decision and make sure to open the box on the correct character. You only get one of these premium ship boxes from each yearly event campaign, so take your time and double check everything before you click the buttons. Second, due to the lockbox and promo ships released thus far in 2025 not being the most impactful, you can also consider this as a list of the best lockbox and promotional ships to go for in STO as of April 2025. Third, the order in which ships are covered in this video is not in order of importance. If that's what you're looking for, then the summary will have a top 5 list for you. And fourth, I don't have this listed up on screen, but you're not going to see many science ships here today, as some of the best science ships in the current meta are either from the Zen store or from your fleet. If you're doing an ability-focused EPG-heavy build, then take a look at the Lucari Journer Scout ship, which you can get from your fleet's Tier 5 colony holding. And if you're doing an uncon console spamming EPG setup, then take a look at either the Terran Monitor or the Arc Royal in the Zen store. And now heading into my recommendations for the 2025 event campaign, the first ship here is probably going to surprise some of you. It is the Protostar from Star Trek Prodigy. Now, this ship is here for fun and theme reasons rather than combat performance. If you want to fly the ship, you can most certainly make it work, but with a secondary Merc Worker seat, this ship is not going to have the same performance potential as the other science platforms out there, such as the ones I mentioned in the notes section. As for the trade and console, neither of those are really anything that notable. So the two reasons to care about this ship are if you're a fan of Prodigy, this is the main ship from that show, and the model for it in game is incredibly detailed. I'm going to lower my FOV here so I can show you it really close up. And, as with most ships in STO that have been released in the past couple of years, there is no unique bridge for this ship that you can go on with your captain, which is a bit unfortunate, especially given from the outside of the ship you can see quite a bit of detail there for the bridge. But also alongside the sides of the ship, you can actually see into some rooms there. You can, see some of the monitors, it's really good detail, and that is repeated on the other side as well. So an incredible amount of detail, and when you're in sector space and you go into transwarp, the big proto-warp engine does pop out here as well. Now, for the fun aspect, again, this thing is really, really fast. The current warp speed record with the Protostar, I believe, is this from a year ago at warp 275.88 by Blue Sun 3435. I'll have a link to their post down below because they go over the full build that they were using to achieve that record. Now, I don't have all of those components, but even without having all of those on, I'm going to show you guys just how fast this thing can be. And I should be going around transwarp 190. So I'm at the bottom left of the beta quadrant, and I want you to see also here, the engine is going to pop out as I go into the proto-warp. And there's just that really awesome effect there. So, again, if you're looking for something different, something fun, if you do a lot of stuff in sector space, this is really, really fun to play around with. So, this is going real-time speed, and this is not going as fast as this thing can go. Again, I'm only at transwarp 190. So I'm going to spin around, and yeah, this is real speed. I haven't done anything to speed this up. You can see the counters going at the bottom left there for some of my abilities or clickies that I have up. It is just that fast. So yeah, the cooldown on this isn't that long, and you can spam this quite a bit. So, if you do Tour the Galaxy a lot, this is going to make your life quite a bit easier, especially if you set up a build on it. Next up is the Atlas Prototype Dreadnought Cruiser. The entire value here comes from the console, the Dynamic Power Redistributor Module, also known as the DPRM. This console sees use on most endgame builds and provides both survivability and damage boost. This console gets a lot of hype. It is good, but there are budget alternatives like the Adaptive Emergency Systems console, which is off some of the engineering flagship variants, and there's also the console we just got off the Garrett, which, while not as effective, does also serve the purpose of being a damage buff and a survivability buff. Now, if you're a new player, I recommend this not be the first premium ship you pick up. You'll see a better boost from many of the other ships I cover in this video. And if you're willing to put money into the game for a MUDs bundle, then just pick this ship up via the Dread Through the Ages bundle during the next MUDs bundle sale. That will net you this on account-wide unlock alongside its KDF and Romulan variants, and that bundle also has the Enterprise J variants in it as well, making it one of the higher value MUDs bundles. Next up is the Dhailkhina Command Strikewing Warbird. As many of you know, this is one of my favorite ships in all of STO. It is a great DPS platform and one of the best Romulan ships in the game. It comes equipped with a 5-2 weapons layout along with an experimental weapon slot and a hangar bay. It has a built-in battle cloak, access to the command and inspiration abilities, and with it being a Romulan ship that has a singularity core, you also get access to the singularity abilities. Console-wise, it has 5 TAC 4 engine 2 psi, so once you have this up to T6X2, you can run either up to 6 ISOMAGs or 7 of the fleet TAC consoles. And for the bridge officers, you've got a Commander TAC with Command, a Lieutenant TAC, a Lieutenant Commander Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Universal with Intel, and an Ensign Universal. The Lieutenant Commander Eng does hurt the ship in the current unconventional systems meta, but even with that disadvantage, the overall setup of the ship and all the features it has, along with that Command Intel specialization combo, make this ship an extremely potent platform. As for its accessories, those are nothing to worry about. It does also come with the Snakehead Fighter Squadron in its hangar bay slot by default. Those aren't that good, that's why I don't have them up on screen. Most people that are running this ship end up just using the Type 7s on it. So this is a great DPS platform with lots of features, but for those of you chasing the meta, there may be better options for you. And I do have to note as well that if you do want the ship on multiple characters, it is available account-wide via the MUDs Primary Faction Choice Bundle. And following the Dhailkhina is the current meta Strikewing Escort, the Mere Engle. Unlike the Dhailkhina, this ship has appeal for both the ship itself and its accessories. But like the Dhailkhina, there is also a way to obtain the ship as an account-wide unlock. In this case, it's via the 12th Anniversary Bundle, so if this ship or its accessories are something you want for multiple characters, then you'd want to grab it via that bundle, rather than burning your event campaign box to get it for a single character. Starting with the ship itself, like the Dhailkhina, this features a 5-2 weapon setup with an experimental weapon slot and a hangar bay. Console-wise, you can't run as many ISOMAGs here as on the Dhailkhina, but the strength of this ship is how well it works with unconventional systems, and on those uncon builds, your console layout doesn't matter, as all slots end up being filled with universal consoles. Bridge officer-wise, you've got a Commander TAC, a Lieutenant Engineer with Intel, Lieutenant Commander Science, Lieutenant Commander Universal with Temporal Operative, and an Ensign Universal. Intel and Temporal are the best specialization seats to have on for unconventional systems builds. That, along with a Lieutenant Commander Psi and a minimal engineering seating, makes this ship amazing for the uncon playstyle. I covered much of that with my last meta build video back in December, which featured the ship. A bit has changed in the time since, and an updated build vid is certainly due, but this is still the best ship we have for that unconventional systems playstyle. And as I said before, it's not just the ship here. Some of these accessories are quite notable as well. The most prominent of which is going to be the Starship trait Superior Area Denial, also referred to as SAD. This is a central piece to many carrier, support, and DPS builds. While this trait is slotted, activating Cannon Scatter Volley or Fire at will upgrade your energy weapons to apply a -30 resistance debuff to foes that you hit. That's the same debuff that you would see from Attack Pattern Beta 1. And this trait is also going to grant your Hangar Pets Fire at Will 1 and Cannon Scatter Volley 1 when you hit Fire at Will or Cannon Scatter Volley. So that ends up being a really huge boost, and some pets see an enormous boost from this trait. As for the other accessories, it's a bit more mixed. The pet here, the Mirror Universe Shuttlecraft, used to be a popular option for those wanting to fill a hangar slot without running a trait like SAD. But if you are running SAD, there are better pets out there like the Todouge Fighter Squadron, Valks, Valor, and so on. And even without SAD nowadays, you do have better options like the Type 7 from the Awani. So it's a pet that used to be one of the go-to options, but not so much nowadays. The console Cascading Subatomic Disruptions is decent on EPG builds, and also some support builds due to the debuff it has. And the experimental weapon is a bit more niche, but if you're doing a setup that is like support focused or EPG focused with an experimental weapon slot on the ship, that one does have a pull effect and also a debuff, so it doesn't do much damage, but the other aspects of it might be appealing to you. And next up is the D7 Miracle Worker Flight Deck Carrier. Like the Atlas, Dhailkhina, and Mir Engle, this is also available as an account-wide unlock through a bundle, which is why I'm going over them first. All 4 of them are good options, but if those bundles are within your budget, you may want to consider going that route instead. In this case, you can get this as an account-wide unlock through the Muds Disco Inferno bundle, and the selection it comes from in that bundle also nets you the Fed equivalent, the Discovery Miracle Worker Constitution Flight Deck Carrier. So again, if you want this on multiple characters, then save up for that Muds bundle and don't burn your event campaign box to get this on a single character. Now, as for the ship, the primary factor to look at this is going to be the Starship trait, the Ruin of Our Enemies, but the ship itself is also a decent platform for those wanting to run an energy weapon setup with 2 hangar bays. So let's start with the ship here. This features a 5-3 weapon setup, 2 hangar bays, the ability to run up to 8 isomags or advanced hangar consoles once you take it up to T6X2, and it has a built-in battle cloak. For the bridge officers, you have a Commander Engineer with Miracle Worker, a Lieutenant Commander TAC, a Lieutenant Commander Universal, a Lieutenant Universal that has Command, and an Ensign Science. Truthfully, this isn't the strongest bridge layout. Command seating doesn't offer much when it's run in an Ensign or Lieutenant slot. The Lieutenant is what we have here. The thing is, there really isn't a better flight deck carrier that has a 5-3 setup right now for energy weapons. So until we get something with a better specialization combo, if you're looking to run a flight deck carrier with a 5-3 setup, this is as good as it gets. Now, heading over to the accessories again, the main appeal here is the Starship trait, the Ruin of Our Enemies. And what this does is when you get the kill shot on a foe and defeat them, you're going to get a stack of this trait. Each stack nets you plus 3% Cat 2 bonus all damage for 20 seconds. And each new stack that you get is going to refresh the duration of all existing stacks that you have. That can stack up to 100 times, totaling a max potential of a 300% Cat 2 damage buff. And after every 5th defeat, where you get the kill shot on the foe with this trait slotted, you're also going to be getting some cooldown reduction for your bridge officer abilities for a couple of seconds. So if you're on a high performance build, especially one that is using area of effect abilities like Fire at Will, Cannon Scatter Volley, EPG to get kills, and you are the one getting most of the kill shots, this trait can perform exceptionally well. And as for the other accessories, the console decloaks a nearby Nequej, which rams your target and does damage. Sadly, it doesn't really do that much. And like with the Federation Disco Connie variant, this will come with some advanced beam rays, in this case a disruptor variant to match this being a KDF ship. Now you may recall in my best phaser vid that I did a couple years ago that the advanced phasers did really well if you run 6 of them to fully max out the proc. Ultimately, that was due to there not being many great phaser variants out at the time. Disruptors are a different story. There are really good disruptors out there, such as the Spiral Waves, which are available in more than just beam arrays and perform very well without needing to slot 6 of them on your build. So these do exist if you want them, but when it comes to disruptors, there are other competitive and in some cases better options available. Now, for the 10 remaining ships, none of these are currently available account-wide as of me doing this video in early May of 2025, so getting them per character is the only way that you can get them right now. And the next ship here is the Friendship Command Flight Deck Carrier. This is one of the best carrier platforms in game for those of you wanting to do a full pets-focused setup. It also works well for tanking or torps, and the accessories from it have some niche value as well. Starting with the ship, this has a 4-4 weapon setup, 2 hangar bays, and the ability to run up to 7 of the advanced hangar consoles. It also has a built-in battle cloak, access to attract fire for tanking, and being a command ship, it does have access to the command inspiration abilities. For the bridge officers, you have a commander Inge with command, a lieutenant commander TAC with intel, lieutenant commander science, along with a lieutenant and ensign universal. So it's not the most offensive configuration, but the command does let you run Suppression Barrage 3, Concentrate Firepower 3, and Needs of the Many to help your pets stay alive and do more damage. And it also has intel, which is crucial to high-performance carriers due to override subsystem safeties, boosting up the amount of haste that the Fleet Power Network Array console is giving your pets. And then it also has a Lieutenant Commander Psi, so you're still able to run a Gravwell 1. Now, for the accessories, the Starship trait is Cooperation is the dominant strategy. Using a Bridge Officer ability or Universal Console on an ally applies Friendship as Science. This can stack up to 5 times per player casting it on the targeted ally, so if an entire team is using this on one targeted player, you can get 20 stacks out of it. Each stack refreshes the duration of all existing stacks from you on the target. And what each stack does is, if the target is a non-hanger ally, each one is going to be a 10% Cat 2 damage buff for 30 seconds. And if the target is a pet or separated ship segment, it is going to double that to 20% Cat 2 bonus damage per stack. So the way this trait is used in DPS runs, basically every support player and every side DPS player has this on to buff up the person going for the record. Again, you can get up to 20 stacks of it if you have 4 players in there, 5 stacks each. You can get a big damage buff from that, 200% Cat 2. In prep phase, you just have a loadout set up with heals on it to spam on the player to get your 5 stacks on. Then you swap back to your loadout for the run and just make sure to reapply something like Ox-to-Sif on them every 20 to 25 seconds to make sure your stacks stay on them. And for carrier players, this is used alongside things like Needs of the Many to give a damage buff to all of the pets around you. As for the console, power transfer emitters, the passives on this are really nice for carriers, plus 10% crit chance is a pretty big deal for your hanger pets. The clicky is also nice, but it's only usable on a single pet or targeted ally, and sadly, you cannot use this console on yourself. But what this is going to do is it's going to make your targeted ally deal electrical damage when they get critical hits, and it then gives them some crit chance to help make that happen. If you use this on a targeted ally, like a player, that's going to be 7.5% crit chance, and if it's a hanger pet, that's a 30% crit chance bump. If you've watched any of the record DPS runs and you've seen electrical bolts coming from the ship, that is from this console. Again, you can't use this on yourself, but what happens in that environment is that a support player uses it on the DPS player. Overall, the Friendship is a really nice option. It has a lot of value for some niche playstyles, but it is certainly not for everyone. But for the right player, it is going to be an amazing pick. Next up is the Credence American Worker Dreadnought Cruiser. 2024 was a rough year for premium ship releases due to everything that was going on with the dev team, but somehow the Credence snuck through and everything about it's fine. The ship itself has a 5-3 weapons layout with 1 hangar bay, and as a 32nd century ship with the floaty bits there, it does also come with a built-in battle cloak, and it also has access to both the weapon system efficiency and attract fire cruiser commands. Once you take this thing up to T6X2, it can run up to 8 isomags if you want. And for the bridge officer layout, you've got a Commander Inge with American Worker, a Lieutenant Commander TAC, a Lieutenant Commander Psi with Temporal Operative, a Lieutenant Universal, and an Ensign Engineer. The Ensign Engineer is unfortunate, but overall the layout is quite capable and makes this a solid energy weapon platform. The Starship trait Surplus Supply is also nice for support-focused setups. Upon activating emergency power to subsystem abilities, it is going to give you and up to 4 allied players within 10 kilometers a heal, plus 50 all resistance, and plus 20 power to each subsystem for 10 seconds. But as good as that is, the console is the main highlight here, and this is the dilithium transporter. Passives on it are good, but the clicky is the big thing here. The clicky on this is buffing you and up to 12 allies within 10 kilometers for 20 seconds with the 4 following buffs. First is immunity to subsystem offline, though this sadly isn't actually working correctly. It doesn't stop Intel's override subsystem safeties, for instance. Second is it is going to disable weapon power cost while active, meaning that your energy weapons drain no power while firing. Third is a 15% energy weapon firing cycle haste buff. And fourth is that it's going to add a proc to both energy and projectile weapons that adds a per shot chance to deal additional radiation damage. The downside is that this console does have a 2-second activation time, which can be extremely disruptive. But the performance boost from it is certainly worth it. I find this console is often one of the top line items on my parses, where it will appear as dilithium-laced weaponry. And in a supported environment, you can have everyone on the team use it to increase how often that proc that does the radiation damage is going off. And for carrier builds, given that this buffs up to 12 nearby allies, that includes hangar pets, this can end up being a substantial boost for your pets as well. Next up is the only other ship from 2024 on this list, the Obena Miracle Worker Heavy Cruiser. The ship itself is very similar to the Princeton in the Zen store, and really isn't that special. As for the Starship trait, well, it sucks. Now, what makes this ship worth talking about is the console. The passive on this gives you a scaling damage resistance buff as your hull capacity falls. At 100%, it is 0 as you see up on screen now, but as you approach 0% hull capacity, that can go up to 630 resistance. And the clicky on this is also quite interesting. Once you turn it on, it is going to stay turned on until it does its thing, and its thing is that when you receive damage, every 2 seconds you can get a stack that provides a 10% damage buff for 60 seconds, and that can stack up to 10 times, and when it hits 10 stacks, it does a 3-kilometer radiation pulse, resets the stacks, and then turns it off with it having a very short 10 to 15 second cooldown. So it's a console that provides damage and survivability buffs, which can be quite handy on some endgame focused builds. Sadly, as of me recording this, the ship has been out for about 6 months now, and this console does have a bug in it, in that when it gets to 10 stacks and resets, it turns off many of the other toggles on your ship, such as the Ilios console and the Nadarian Jellyfish mode. I have complained about this, and hopefully it will be fixed, but just be aware of that as it can be quite disruptive. And following up the Obena is the Excelsior 2. It is worth noting that the Obena and Excelsior 2 are larger than the original Excelsior models and are not able to kit bash with the originals. However, the Obena and E2 are kit bashable if you own both, meaning that you can mix and match parts between them if you own both of them. Now for the Excelsior 2 here, everything about it's fine. This is one of the ships that I actually have a full review video out for, so if you want to learn more about it, I'll have that linked down below. The ship is a solid broadsider with a 4-4 weapons layout. It's got a Commander Inge with Intel, Lieutenant Commander Science with Miracle Worker, Lieutenant Commander TAC, and a Lieutenant Commander Universal. That Commander Intel also makes this a great surgical strikes platform. The Starship trade-off of this is Calculated Broadside, and it is activated by Fire at Will, or Intel Bridge Officer abilities, and it provides a 35% Cat 1 beam weapon damage buff, plus 30 resistance to your side arcs that is doubled to 60 if Threatening Stance is turned on, and if Threatening Stance is off, it is going to lower your threat gen by 60%. And as for the Excelsior 2 console, the passive on it's fine. The clicky on it, though, is really the main highlight here. The first part of the clicky is that it gives you a Cat 1 damage buff that scales up based on the power levels of your non-weapon subsystems. And then the second part is that it shoots phaser beams everywhere. So if you are looking for something fun that's going to shoot phaser beams everywhere for a couple seconds, then that console would be something to take a look at. And it is only up for 15 seconds though, so keep that in mind, and it does have a bit of a longer activation time, so I wouldn't spam bar it. It could be a bit disruptive, potentially cause some misfires if you spam bar it, but it is a very fun, very immersive console, and I know that this was a very popular pick for many folks with some of the prior event campaigns. And next up is the infamous Constitution 3 Miracle Worker Cruiser. The ship itself is fine, comparable to the legendary variants of the Excelsior and Sovereign, but the main highlight here is the accessories. So starting with the Starship trait Thunder Run, this is going to give you bonuses during Fire at Will, Beam Overload, Cloak, or Cloak Ambush. So this is plus 20% Cat 2 bonus damage for beams. It's going to give you a defense buff, and then if you have Threatening Stance active, it's also going to increase your threat gen. So that's cool. There are better traits out there, but that exists if you pick the ship up. The main highlight here ends up being the console, Bioelectrical Wave Capacitor, and I'll show you the visuals of this in a moment. But passive on this is plus 19.9% Cat 1 energy damage, plus 39.9% Cat 2 bonus electrical damage, which is really quite huge for science builds. Then there is plus 5 weapon subsystem power, and the clicky is going to shoot out a bioelectrical wave from your ship, and this thing, it does a crazy amount of damage on exotic builds. It is going to be one of the top line items that you see on many of the recent Science EPG parses. So I'm going to hit some damage buffs, and what I'm going to do here is hit this console. And while you're in the wake of it, you're also going to get a power and speed buff for yourself and any allies that are within it. But what you're going to see is it does quite a bit. Like, it just hit 400k there on that target, and I'm not even on an EPG build. I'm on, just my normal CSV setup, and it hit for 400k there. So, yeah, this thing on the right build with EPG can do quite a bit, and as you see, it has quite a bit of a travel distance. And heading back over to the tooltip here, I do want to note that speed buff is quite substantial there. You see plus 631.3% turn rate strength while in the wave, and also a flight speed buff there. Pretty impactful. And then the other accessory this has is some really special phaser beams. These are the narrow angle beams. These are the only version of these that exist in the game currently. And basically, these have a smaller firing arc than your normal phaser beams. And in exchange for that, they do increase damage. So behind the Terran, these are probably the two best phaser beams you can have on, because there is an equip limit of 2. So if you're looking to do a phaser beam array setup, you don't want to do the advanced phasers, then picking these up from the Connie 3 might be appealing to you. And I forgot to mention this, but the bioelectrical wave console, that does a lot for EPG, but the passive on it, especially that electrical damage, that is really huge for the Nadarian Defender. The Jellyfish mode on that does electrical damage, so that bioelectrical wave console is buffing that up. And the next ship here is the Gorn Hunter Pilot Raider. This is not a ship you're buying for the ship itself, as it has this really obnoxious spinning effect as soon as you start to move forward or backward, and there is no way to turn this off other than to stop moving. So the reason that you're going to go for the ship is the accessories. You're probably going to fly it long enough to level it up for the trait, and then probably never fly the ship again. The accessories here are what have made plasmas so good in the elite endgame meta, with the Starship trait Complex Plasma Fires being the most important piece here. While you have an energy firing mode active, this trait is going to make your plasma weapons apply a stacking plasma dot to your foes for 30 seconds that ignores shields and scales up with your weapon power. And if the enemy shield facing is down, it then deals additional plasma damage. This trait can stack up to 100 times per foe, and is able to do a huge amount of damage on plasma setups, as I have covered many times on the channel over the past 2 years. This trait is why I primarily use plasma on my builds. Alongside that, you get a set of accessories that all synergize very well with this trait. The console lure team command has passives to boost up dots and plasma damage, along with a clicky that can shut down enemy shields and do some plasma damage. The quad cannons have a 5% proc to debuff the foe's resistance to dots, but sadly, this quad cannon doesn't really perform that well, and it ends up not being used over another dual or dual heavy cannon. And then there is the Plasma Bombard experimental weapon, which does a ton of plasma damage and can trigger the trait with each line of damage it is able to do versus the foe. It is the second best experimental weapon in the game, with only the hexacannons from the Achilles coming out ahead. So if you're looking to jump into plasma, the Gorn Hunter has the core parts that you need to make those builds shine. Next up is the Shrike Intel Juggernaut. This is a great energy weapon platform, and one of the best ships out there for surgical strikes. The Kith Intel Warbird that we just got is better for surgical, as it can also do recursive shearing, but the Kith just released into the game and as such isn't available from this event campaign. But the Shrike is a really beefy ship. You've got a 5-3 weapon setup, a high 1.5 hull modifier. You've got the ability to run up to 6 isomags or 7 of your fleet tac consoles. You've got a Commander TAC with Intel, a Lieutenant Commander Inge with Miracle Worker, a Lieutenant Science, Lieutenant Commander Universal, and an Ensign Universal. So you have room to still do a gravel on this. And with that bridge officer seating, I said surgical strikes, but this would also be a good platform for fire at will, cannon scatter volley, beam overload. Like any of the main energy weapon firing modes are going to work very well on this ship. And as a Juggernaut, it does also have a built-in Juggernaut array. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, this one has a charge up time, and it honestly just sucks compared to the other Juggernaut arrays out there. If you've used the Vodwar Jug, the World Razer, you know how when you hit those Juggernaut arrays, it just fires like a ball of energy out the front of your ship and it does damage to a bunch of things. This doesn't work that way. This one just shoots a ball after a couple seconds that is going to go and hit one target and then chain 2 foes around it. and the damage is no way comparable. It is just a really poorly designed Juggernaut array. Now, the console here, Portal Weapon, the passives on it are pretty good. Plus 25.6% Cat 1 all damage, plus 17.1% hull capacity. Those are some really good passives. Unfortunately, the concept of this console, the clicky on it, is creating a portal between you and the targeted foe. And this thing, the more I use it, the more annoyed I get with it, because it just will randomly turn off. Your weapons won't always fire through it. It's very buggy. It released at a point during the transition where we were starting to see some people departing the team, and as a result, this thing, it just doesn't have the level of polish it needs. It doesn't work right, and I think the more you try to use it, the more disappointed you are going to be with it. But there is some redemption here. The Starship trait Eclectic Collector of Armaments is quite good. Using different kinds of attacks, each grant 10% faster recharge time for your innate capital ship weapons, and a 10% Cat 2 damage buff for your entire build for 30 seconds. Innate capital ship weapons are things like lances or Juggernaut arrays that are built into the ship by default, so lances or things like that you would add via consoles do not count for that cooldown reduction. There are 6 different weapon types that you can use with this: beams, cannons, torps, capital ship innate weapons, universal consoles, and experimental weapons. And this does stack, so using multiple damage sources means more damage for everything on your build, and faster recharge for those innate capital weapons. So let's say your build has a beam on it, some cannons, a torpedo, some universal consoles, and an experimental weapon on. That would be 5 stacks, meaning 50% Cat 2 all damage and 50% recharge time reduction for those innate weapons. And following the Shrike is another Juggernaut, though this is one that I think more of you are going to like. This is the World Razer Temporal Ops Juggernaut, which uses the Galaxy class frame and as such is fully kit bashable with the other Galaxy class variants in the game, meaning you can make it look just like the Galaxy class that we saw in the next generation. Now, this is also another ship that I have a full review video for, so if you want to see more in-depth discussion about the ship or any of the accessories on it, I'll have that in the pinned comment down below. And starting with the ship stats here, if you've ever wanted a Galaxy class in this game that was tactical focused, very offensive, this is it. This thing's got a 5-3 weapon setup. You can't run a ton of isomegs on it, just 5, but that's still plenty enough. For the bridge officer setup, you've got a commander tac with temporal operative, a lieutenant commander engineer with command, an ensign science, and then you've got 2 universal seats, a lieutenant commander and lieutenant. That is a lot of flexibility from those 2 universal seats, and what that means is if you want to set this thing up for just your normal energy weapon setup with most of your main firing modes, beam overload, fire at will, cannon scatter volley, so on, that's going to work really well. If you want to do torps on this, you've got room to do that. If you want to do a due size setup on this, you can do that because of all the flexibility those 2 universal seats give you. So this is a really versatile ship, and it's also able to dish out quite a bit of firepower. The Juggernaut array on this is going to do phaser damage as well. There's a visual demonstration of this Juggernaut array in that review, again, which is linked below. But again, this is just a really fun, offensive Galaxy class ship, so if you want a Galaxy class that can deal some damage, this is it. Now, the other part of this ship that matters is the Starship trait Cultural Conquest. And basically, when you hit weapon firing modes, so fire at will, cannon scatter volley, torpedo spread, torpedo high yield, things like that, each of those that you hit is going to give you a 25% Cat 1 damage buff for 15 seconds. And dealing weapon damage to foes that have then debuffed, put a damage over time effect on you, or controlled you is going to improve that from 25% to 50%, and it's going to remove one such effect from you. And the important thing here is that stacks. So if I have a torpedo firing mode on, a beam firing mode, and a cannon firing mode, that means I've got 3 stacks of this up, and if I hit a foe that has done any of those things to me, that is up to 150% Cat 1 damage that I'm getting for my entire build. So this is a trait that sees a lot of use on high-end builds, especially as many of those builds with the Uncon meta have dropped their isomags and tac consoles. they don't have as much Cat 1, and this trait has come in as a way for us to get much of that Cat 1 back. Next up is the Crossfield Science Spearhead Refit, and the only part of this that matters is the Starship trait Universal Designs. When activating a Universal Console, you're going to get a buff for 20 seconds that can stack up to 5 times. Each stack will provide you with 2% crit chance and 10% severity. So at 5 stacks, that is 10% crit chance and 50% severity that this trait can provide. New stacks of this will refresh the duration of the existing stacks that you have. It's a Starship trait that is widely used across pretty much every endgame build, so if you don't have it, it is really powerful. 10% crit chance, 50% severity. If you have enough Universal Consoles on to keep that up, then definitely take a look at it. And the final ship here is the Mirror Warship. This is the mirror version of the Discovery Constitution, and it is kit bashable with the Discovery Connie, so you can make the Disco Connie look like this, or you can make this look like the original Discovery Constitution. But aside from that, the big appeal here is going to be the Starship trait, and to some extent, the ship itself. So the Starship trait here is Terran Goodbye. If you've looked at any endgame builds over the past couple of years, you have probably seen this trait on there. What this trait does is when you defeat a foe, and you have to be the one to get the kill shot on the foe in order to get a stack of this, you're going to get 25 accuracy rating for 20 seconds and 5% crit chance. That can stack up to 3 times, taking you up to a total of 75 accuracy and 15% crit chance. That's a pretty substantial buff, so this ends up being one of the primary methods used to increase crit chance on builds, especially alongside Universal Designs, the trait off the Crossfield Refit I just mentioned. You know, that right there, between those two traits, that's 25% crit chance and 50% severity and 75 accuracy. So those traits pair well together, and that's why you see them on pretty much every endgame build out there. Now, as for the ship itself, in some ways it's a little bit dated, but I do think that this is one of the better beginner premium ships to go for. You know, you've got the trait there that's going to be a big boost for someone just getting into the game. And you've also got a pretty decent layout on the ship itself. It's got a 5-3 weapons configuration. It's got 5 tac consoles, 4-inch to psi. So when you take that up to X2, you could run up to 7 tac consoles or 6 engineering. And for the bridge officer setup, you've got a commander tac, a commander engineer, a lieutenant commander universal with intel, an ensign universal, and then an ensign tac. So it's a really weird setup there with the 2 commanders. But what that means is, you know, if you're someone just getting into things, you've got the commander tac there to do CSV3 if you wanted, or attack pattern beta 3, whatever you want. But you have the engineering there, which at a beginner level, you might see a bit more use out of. You could do reverse shield polarity there, rank 3. You could do emergency powered weapons 3, emergency powered engines 1. You know, for the current uncon meta, this isn't going to be the best setup, but for someone just getting into things, that's not a bad setup there, and you still have the intel to get override subsystem safeties, so sure, it's not going to be the best platform ever, but it is still very capable. And the console, you know, if you're a new player, 15% crit chance on the passive there, that's not bad. The clicky, I don't recall doing too much, but you know, that wouldn't be a bad console for someone that's just getting into things as well. So that's my top 15 picks for Event Campaign 7 here in 2025. Not too much has changed from last year, as the quality of ships released in 2024 were not the same as we saw in 2023 due to all the chaos that was going on with the transition between dev teams. Again, the order in which I presented ships here were not in order of their importance. I did try to do a few groupings, such as ships that have ways to obtain them account-wide, or options to boost certain playstyles like carriers. But I know you guys want a top 5 list, so here it is. At number 1 is the Mirror Warship, as the trait from it is very easy to keep up, even with the requirement of you needing to get the kill shot, and the ship itself is also a very good beginner platform. At number 2 is the Crossfield Refit, exclusively for its trait Universal Designs. It's hard to ignore, up to 10% crit chance and 50% severity, and there are plenty of ways to maintain that at 100% uptime now. At number 3 is the World Razer. The ship itself is a beast, and the trade-off of it is really quite good once you stack up multiple triggers for it. At number 4 is the D7 Miracle Worker Flight Deck Carrier. The Ruin of our enemy's trait does have a higher barrier of entry with its kill shot requirement, but for those of you playing solo or playing aggressively in team content, you can make it work very well. The key is to just be the first person to each portion of the map. The ship itself is also good for range weapons and some carrier shenanigans. And at number 5, I have to give it to the Gorn Hunter Pilot Raider. This is a pick really targeted at endgame focused players, but Plasma has become the top option for Elite thanks to the complex Plasma Fire trait off of this ship. The accessories are also quite good, and I think those of you focused on Elite will enjoy the experience that Plasma has to offer with these accessories. But that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully this helped. If you need any additional help, feel free to stop by the Builds Discord or ask in the comment section down below. Thanks again to all channel members and viewers for the continued support. See you guys around.